The cemetery was quiet, too quiet. I came with flowers the same way I had every Sunday since last year, when we buried him. My hand shook as I set the bouquet down, except there was nothing to set them on. The earth was torn open, the grave split wide, and the coffin gone. I froze, staring at the pit where he should have been resting. The ground wasn't fresh but disturbed. The grass was pulled back like fingers had clawed through it. For a second I thought maybe I had the wrong spot. But no. His name was still carved into the stone. Only the grave was empty. I whispered his name, almost expecting him to answer. My breath hitched. No, this isn't possible. The grave dirt smelled sharp, like iron, like something had been dragged out in the dark. Please subscribe to our channel and tell me in comments from where are you watching this video. That's when I noticed footprints. Muddy, uneven, circling the grave. One set, then another. Heavy boots. And something else. Smaller prints, bare feet pressed into the mud as if someone had climbed out. I felt my chest tighten. He had been dead. I saw him. I stood by the casket. I heard the dirt fall. Yet right in front of me the coffin was missing. Behind me a voice broke the silence. Low. Shaking. You shouldn't have come. I spun around. No one was there. Just the wind. But the words lingered heavy, as if they'd been whispered directly into my ear. The grave dirt clung to my shoes as I stumbled backward, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. An empty coffin wasn't just strange, it was impossible. My family buried him with their own hands. My mother sobbed into my father's chest, my uncle threw the first handful of dirt, and I stood frozen, watching the casket sink into the ground. I had nightmares for months about that sound, the hollow echo of earth hitting wood. Yet now the box was gone, and the ground whispered of something unnatural. I couldn't move. My heart banged against my ribs like it wanted out. I kept hearing that voice, you shouldn't have come. Had I imagined it? Was grief playing tricks? No, it was too clear. Too deliberate. I reached down to touch the soil. It wasn't cold. It was warm. The warmth crawled up my fingertips, almost pulsing, as if the earth itself was breathing. I snatched my hand back and scanned the headstones around me. All of them were still. Silent. Except his. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I jumped so hard I nearly dropped it. Unknown number. Against every instinct I answered. Static filled my ear, then nothing. Just breathing. Slow. Heavy. Then a single word. Home. The line went dead. I stood there, clutching my phone as 1,000 thoughts collided inside me. Who was that? Why did they say home? Was it him? My father had sworn he saw the body. My mother swore she kissed his cold forehead. If he wasn't in the grave, where was he? I left the cemetery in a daze, barely remembering how I drove home. The front door creaked louder than usual, the hallway darker, the air thicker. Every picture on the wall, family portraits, holidays, birthdays, suddenly felt wrong. Every smile in them stretched too far. Every eye seemed to follow me. That's when I saw it. A photo frame I didn't remember hanging. It was crooked, almost like someone had placed it in a hurry. My hand trembled as I lifted it from the wall. Inside wasn't a photo. It was a piece of paper. Old, creased, stained with something that looked suspiciously like dirt. The same handwriting from the cemetery scrawled across it. Don't dig where you can't bury. I dropped it. My knees nearly gave out. That handwriting, I knew it. I had seen it before. It was his. It was my brother's. The one we buried. But if he was gone, if the grave was empty, and if this note was real, then someone was playing with us. Or worse, he had never really left. That night sleep refused to come. Every creak of the house sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind against the window felt like a hand. And as I sat in the dark, clutching that note, I swore I heard it again, whispered from the hallway, closer this time. You shouldn't have come. The house seemed to breathe with me that night, every wall groaning, every shadow stretching longer than it should. I sat at the kitchen table with the note laid flat in front of me, reading those words over and over again until they etched themselves into my skull. Don't dig where you can't bury. Who was supposed to bury what? Him? Me? A truth? I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. In the morning, I asked my mother about the grave. I expected denial, maybe anger. Instead, she froze, her teacup halfway to her lips. The color drained from her face like someone had opened a valve. "Don't bring this up again," she whispered. "It will destroy everything." Her hand shook so hard the tea spilled. But that wasn't what broke me, it was her eyes. They weren't shocked or confused. They were guilty. She knew something. She always had. When I pressed, my father stormed in, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. "Drop it," he barked, his voice rough with something deeper than rage. "If you care about this family, you'll never speak his name again." But that only confirmed it. They weren't surprised that his grave was empty. They were afraid I knew. That night I tore through the attic, desperate for answers. Old boxes, faded clothes, yellowing photographs. I searched until my hands were black with dust. Then, tucked inside an old shoebox beneath a pile of forgotten curtains, I found it. A second hospital tag. The name matched my brother's, but the date didn't. Not his birth date, not his death. It was years later. A chill wrapped around me. Why would my brother need a hospital tag years after his death? Unless he hadn't died. I carried the tag to my room and sat in the dark, staring at it. Suddenly my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. My throat closed as I answered. This time the voice wasn't a whisper. It was his voice. My brother's voice. "You were never supposed to know." The line clicked dead. I dropped the phone, my body trembling so violently I thought my bones might shatter. He was alive. He had to be. But if that was true, what had we buried? And why had my parents lied for so long? Sleep was impossible. I sat by the window until dawn, watching the street, waiting for something, anything to move. And just when my eyes began to blur, I saw it. Across the street, beneath the old oak tree, a figure stood. Still. Watching. Too far to make out the face, but the posture, the way the shoulders curved forward, the way the head tilted, was burned into my memory. It was him. My brother. I blinked and the spot was empty. The next morning, I demanded answers from my parents again. They refused, their faces hard stone masks. But their silence spoke louder than any confession. Something monstrous had been hidden in this family. And I wasn't sure if I was ready to dig it up, or if I had a choice anymore. I couldn't live with shadows anymore. That night, I returned to the cemetery with a flashlight and a crowbar, determined to find something concrete. My hand shook as I pried open the coffin we had buried. When the lid cracked, the smell of earth rushed out, but inside there was no body, only a bundle of rags, a child's toy truck, and a photograph of my brother smiling at 6 years old. My breath caught in my chest. They hadn't buried him. They had buried the memory of him. The ground beneath me seemed to tilt. My phone buzzed again, and this time I let it ring until it stopped. My brother didn't want me to answer. He wanted me to follow. The next day, I trailed my father when he left the house. He drove out of town, down roads that grew narrower until they turned into gravel. At the edge of a forest, he parked, looked over his shoulder like a thief, and walked into the trees. I followed at a distance, careful, heart pounding. Deep inside the woods stood a cabin, hidden from the road. Its windows were covered, its roof sagging under moss. My father unlocked the door, slipped inside and stayed. I waited until nightfall, until the woods swallowed every sound, then crept closer. Through a crack in the boarded window I saw him. Not my father, him. My brother. Older now, leaner, his face shadowed by years I hadn't lived with him. But it was him, alive, pacing the cabin like a caged animal. My father handed him a plate of food, their exchange quiet, practiced, as if they had been doing this for years. My father said something I couldn't hear, and my brother's shoulders sagged like stone. I nearly kicked the door open, but fear held me back. Instead, I listened. Their voices carried faintly through the wood. "You promised," my brother said, his voice shaking. "I promised to protect you," my father answered. "By locking me here? It's better than what waits outside." The words carved into me. My brother wasn't dead. He was hidden. Protected or imprisoned. But from what? The next morning, I confronted my parents. My mother cried instantly, burying her face in her hands, but my father stayed silent. Finally he spoke, his tone colder than I had ever heard. He killed someone. The room collapsed into silence. My ears rang. My father's words spilled out. 10 years ago there had been a fight, an accident, a death. My brother, only 16, had blood on his hands. Instead of prison, my parents buried an empty coffin, declared him gone, and built him a cage in the woods. They told the world he was dead, told us to mourn, while secretly feeding him scraps of a life. The grave wasn't empty because of some haunting miracle. It was empty because it had always been empty. But when I told them I had seen him alive, my mother broke down completely. He's not the monster your father says. He didn't mean to. He's still my son. For days I wrestled with it. Was he a murderer or a boy trapped by guilt and fear? The memory of his voice on the phone replayed endlessly. You were never supposed to know. I went back to the cabin alone. This time I walked straight to the door and pushed it open. My brother sat in the corner, eyes hollow, skin pale from years without light. When he looked at me I saw everything, fear, regret, and a flicker of the boy I once knew. You should leave, he whispered. I can't, I said. Not again. Please subscribe to our channel and tell me in comments from where are you watching this video. We sat for hours, words spilling like broken glass. 10 years of silence cracking open. He confessed the accident, the fight that ended a life. He confessed the nights he wanted to run, the mornings he wished he had been in that coffin. But mostly he confessed how much he missed being my brother. When I left that cabin, I carried a truth heavier than the earth we had once buried. The world believed my brother was gone. My parents lived in fear of the truth surfacing. And he lived in a prison built out of love twisted by desperation. The grave may have been empty, but the weight it carried was unbearable. And so I made a choice, not to tell the world, not to expose my parents, not to free my brother recklessly. Instead, I chose to carry his secret, to visit him when I could, to remind him he wasn't invisible. Because sometimes graves don't hold bodies. They hold secrets. And this one was ours.